Hello, my name is Jake Tischer, and today we're going to talk about fishing pressure. Most anglers don't understand that fishing pressure has a huge effect on fish location and fish attitude, especially in today's modern age of advanced GPS, advanced sonar, advanced mapping, electronic mapping, and more angler knowledge than ever before. So since fishing pressure has such a big effect, as anglers we need to understand how fishing pressure affects fish and react accordingly. Let me give you an example. How many times have you been out yourself, or you've heard about somebody going out on a certain lake or a certain spot and just pounding them, just hammering them, and then they went up the next day and caught two? And often it's blamed on the weather or barometric pressure. The fact of the matter is 95% of the time it's not the weather, it's not barometric pressure, it's the fact that you just hammered them the day before and they're just not going to bite the same the next day. Fishing pressure has that dramatic of an effect and that quick of an effect. Now think about it, there are hundreds of thousands of other fishermen out there, and they all have the same GPS as you, the same sonar as you, and the same fishing knowledge as you. Now what are the odds that one of those fishermen, or many of those fishermen, have been fishing the same spot that you have, or the same lake for the last week or month or whatever? Since those fishermen have likely been fishing those spots, the fishing is not as good on those spots as it would be if you were fishing a spot that only you fished. So how do we combat this? How do we find our own spot? How do we find our own areas of the lake? How do we put together a pattern that defeats fishing pressure? Because the fact of the matter is, you're trying to outsmart other fishermen. You're trying to outfish other fishermen. So if you remember, what we talked about before was fish like irregularities, something that's different from its surrounding area in the lake, or something that's different from the lake as a whole. So, taking fishing pressure into account, we need to take it one step further and look for irregularities that are hard to find. Because if they're hard for you to find, they're going to be hard for other anglers to find. So we need to be looking for irregularities that may be small, difficult to find, or possibly overlooked, or hard to get to. That is where you'll find the best fishing in a lake, a river, or any body of water across the country. So how do we find these small, overlooked, hard to find irregularities? You can start by looking at your map. What you're going to see is large points, large humps, large corners. Odds are there's going to be fish there and they're going to be good spots, but if your lake has any kind of fishing pressure at all, that's where everybody else is going to be fishing, so it's not going to be the best spot in the lake. So what we need to be looking for is small humps, small points, very small spots. Also small areas where a break line maybe goes from very steep to very gradual. Those are often very overlooked spots and often can be the best spot in a lake. But what if you can't find one of these spots by looking at the map? Then you have to go and do the dirty work. First of all, get out there and study the other anglers. What are they doing? What are they focusing in on? What kind of structures? And then try to either find something a little bit different or completely different than what they're doing. Maybe a completely different area of the lake where there's no weeds or trees or anything like that to hold fish that are easy to see and easy to find, so other anglers will stay away from. So in that situation, what might work for you is going into that area where there's not a lot of structure and also not a lot of anglers because of the lack of structure, and just look, just search for anything, because the fact of the matter is, because there's nothing there, if you find something, there's going to be a lot of fish on it and they're going to have no pressure, so they're going to be the biggest fish in the lake. Also, as a side note, we've only talked about external fishing pressure, other anglers' fishing pressure. Yes, that's very important. That's the most important thing, is to realize and understand how to beat other anglers' fishing pressure. But also, it's important not to get beat by your own fishing pressure. If you go hammer a spot or hammer a lake and do really well, catch a lot of fish, don't expect to go back there the next day or 2 days later and do just as well. It usually doesn't happen. And it wasn't the weather, it wasn't the barometric pressure, it was the fact that you went out there and caught them well the day before, and they reacted to your fishing pressure, and they're not going to be biting as well today or the next day. They may bite as well 3 days from now. That's if you didn't keep them. So let's recap. The way to beat outside fishing pressure or fishing pressure from other anglers is looking for irregularities that are hard for you to find. Because if they're hard for you to find, then they're hard for other anglers to find as well. That's how you catch the biggest fish in the lake. That's how you find the best spot in the lake. Also, don't get beaten by your own fishing pressure. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next video. Good luck on the water.